Dorian Vance moved through JFK's Terminal 4 with quiet confidence, his suit crisp, his leather garment bag in hand, and a first-class boarding pass to San Francisco. He was en route to deliver the keynote at the West Coast Sustainability Summit. It wasn't new to him. What was new was the mood hanging in the air. Gate 17 hadn't filled up yet. A few passengers loitered nearby. Dorian approached the counter, offering a nod to the young gate agent, Ally. She glanced at the boarding pass, hesitated, then looked him over, really looked, before speaking. This lane is for premium passengers only. I know, Dorian replied evenly. She scanned the pass, then paused mid-scan. Her eyes darted toward a coworker. Can I see your ID? Dorian blinked. That's not standard policy. Just a security measure, she insisted. Without fuss, he handed over his license. She didn't even scan it, just set it down awkwardly. Wait here a moment. He said nothing that a security officer appeared within seconds, standing stiffly beside him, silent. Dorian stepped out of line. He didn't raise his voice, didn't argue. Instead, he calmly dialed number. Maggie, I need the Horizon Air contract, Western routes, he said quietly. I'm at gate JFK 17. He kept the phone at his side after hanging up, gaze steady. Behind the counter, Ally made an announcement about a minor delay. Whispers began to ripple through the line. A man in a polo shirt leaned forward. What's going on? He causing trouble? Dorian heard it, but stayed composed. What Ally didn't know, what no one at that gate seemed to know, was that Dorian Vance wasn't just another first-class passenger. He was the man behind a $48 million contract Horizon Air had just signed to overhaul their in-flight meals with sustainable, regionally sourced produce. His company, Vance Global Foods, had become a quiet powerhouse, but to Ally, he was just a face that didn't belong. Born in Mansfield, Ohio, Dorian had built his company from the back of a pickup truck. At 15, he sorted fruit with his mother in a grocery store. At 23, he opened a roadside stand. By 30, he had discovered a market gap, clean local produce for high-demand grocers, and filled it. Now he supplied dozens of chains and had just landed the airline's biggest food service overhaul in a decade. He never boasted about it, but he had standards. And the scene unfolding now, this wasn't about inconvenience. It was about being misjudged. Maggie called back. I have the contract, she said. Want me to notify Horizon? Flag it, he replied. Let's give them a chance to recognize it themselves. Ally, meanwhile, was flustered. She had joined JFK a month ago and was eager to prove she could follow protocols. But she lacked instinct. Her colleague Mia walked over. What's going on? He says he's in first class. Mia narrowed her eyes. His pass says he is. Are you sure there's a problem? Ally didn't respond. Passengers began to complain. Ally's earpiece crackled. Ally, this is Supervisor Reynolds. Gate 17's flagged for delay. Status. Passenger issue, she mumbled, her voice dry. Mia stepped back, then leaned in and whispered, Do you know who that is? That's Dorian Vance. Horizon's new food contract guy. Ally froze. What? Yeah. We just got that memo in the vendor brief. Ally's heart thumped. She glanced at Dorian, who hadn't moved. Still holding his pass. Still calm. His stillness made her panic more. We should just board him, Mia said. If we do, it'll look like... Ally stopped. Her throat tightened. Upstairs, in a glass-walled office overlooking the tarmac, Cynthia Reyes was reviewing quarterly reports when her assistant buzzed in. Urgent call. From someone representing Dorian Vance. Cynthia's brow lifted. She picked up. This is Cynthia. Hi, Cynthia. Maggie Geller, assistant to Dorian Vance. He's currently being detained at Gate 17. Cynthia sat up. Detained. Yes. No incident, no policy violation, just delayed. But I'd suggest addressing it before the press boards the same flight. At Gate 17, Dorian stepped away from the glass wall and returned to the counter, still silent that Ally's eyes locked on him. She could feel the moment slipping out of her control. Mia was texting someone. The security officer, now aware he may have misstepped, shifted uncomfortably. And then the gate speaker buzzed. Paging Mr. Dorian Vance. Please report to, but Dorian was already there, His phone buzzed again. "Maggie, Horizon's VP just responded," she said. "He's calling Cynthia now." Ally's radio lit up. "Ally, this is Reynolds again. Don't touch anything. Corporate's on the line." Cynthia Reyes stood beside the jetway as Dorian Vance boarded. The moment she handed over the signed contract, she knew something irreversible had shifted. Not just in corporate reputation, but in how power was understood inside Horizon Air. Quiet power, the kind Dorian wielded, didn't announce itself. It simply moved. Dorian took his seat in 1A, declining small talk, declining wine. The gestures meant nothing. What mattered was what happened next, not for him, but for the thousands who'd fly Horizon next week, next month, next year. Meanwhile, Ally sat slumped behind the gate desk, her headset finally removed. Mia returned silently and handed her a printout, Dorian's passenger profile. There, under his photo, it said, "Executive Vendor. Do not delay or redirect. Direct access, VP office." Too late. Upstairs, Cynthia returned to her office and shut the door. Her inbox had already begun flooding. Legal, HR, PR. But there was also something else. A forwarded video clip. Just 37 seconds. Captured by the woman with the floral carry-on bag. It showed Dorian standing still while security stood next to him, silent. It ended with Cynthia's arrival and the sharp audio of, "Mr. Vance, I'd like to speak with you privately." It was already being shared on internal Slack channels under the title, "Gate 17 Mistake." Downstairs, the ripple had reached other terminals. Gate agents were quietly being told to re-review all VIP notations. Internal memos were being sent with the subject, "Urgent, vendor sensitivity, refresh." The term Vance Protocol had already been coined in one department. Jack Renault, still pacing at Horizon's Minneapolis headquarters, received a brief update. "Mr. Vance is aboard. Situation stabilized. Internal delays triggered for retraining rollout." Jack leaned on the conference table. "Let's get the VP of Culture on this. And pull the fall campaign. Dorian won't want his face on it now." Back in 1A, Dorian opened his folder again, not the contract, but a smaller sheet tucked behind. A photo of his father's hands, weathered and calloused, taken the year before he passed. Underneath, a handwritten quote, "People may not remember what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel." He folded it, placed it back inside. The plane began to taxi. From a nearby row, a young black flight attendant named Elijah quietly passed a note folded 3 times. Dorian looked up. Elijah didn't speak. He just gave a respectful nod and moved on. Dorian unfolded the note. "Thank you for not yelling. Thank you for being the kind of man my dad always talked about becoming. Watching you stand still changed something in me." For the first time that morning, Dorian blinked slowly and looked out the window. Not triumphant, not vindicated, just aware. The plane lifted off, 38,000 feet above the Midwest. As passengers dozed or watched movies, Cynthia drafted an internal memo. It was simple, direct, and unsigned, meant to be attributed to executive leadership, but clearly shaped by her own hand. Mistakes in judgment are human. Patterns of exclusion are systemic. We must change both. She hovered over send, then pressed it. At JFK, Ally was being quietly escorted to HR. She wasn't fired. Horizon had no official grounds, and Dorian hadn't demanded anything. But the evaluation was underway. In another wing, the internal diversity lead was pulled into a session titled Revised Training Response, Gate Level Discretion. On the plane, Jordan returned with a warm towel. "Mr. Vance, is there anything we can do to improve your experience today?" Dorian looked at him. "Yes. Stop making this about today." Jordan blinked. "Sir, make it about the next 100 passengers like me. The ones who don't own companies. The ones who don't have lawyers on speed dial. Make it about them." Jordan nodded solemnly. "Yes, sir." When the plane landed in San Francisco, Dorian exited first. Cynthia had arranged for a private car, but he declined. Instead, he pulled his bag behind him and walked straight into the terminal like everyone else that he passed a billboard. Horizon Air, refreshing the skies. His own name had been slated to appear on that board next month. He hoped it wouldn't. Back in New York, Mia sat at her break room table, Scrolling through Reddit. One post was gaining traction on r/airline stories. Man in first class stopped from boarding despite having a valid ticket. Airline tried to fix it once they realized he was a major vendor. But it shouldn't have taken that much. This happens every day, just not to people who can call the VP. The comment beneath read, simply, "Respect shouldn't require status." What do you think? Was this just a case of corporate overreach correcting itself, or a wake-up call about deeper issues in how we judge people based on appearance, status, or assumptions? Leave a comment. Was Dorian right to stay silent? Should Ally have been fired? How should companies respond to unconscious bias like this? Let's talk about it.